Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are talking about UKGE, which is the UK's biggest board game convention, and it takes place from May 31st to June 2nd, and it is in Birmingham. And we've made a list of a whole bunch of games that we're hoping are going to be there, we think are going to be there, and we split them between the two of us. We did a little bit of research, and now we're going to share it with each other and with all of you.
And we haven't played any of these,
Nope.
and we have no pictures. This is just based on the descriptions that we've read about. And like you said, some of these will hopefully be available to purchase, but some of these might just be available just to play. And if you haven't been to UKGE before, there are just a ton of games. It's definitely a game buying focused convention. There is open gaming with a library and stuff too, but the focus is on the publishers and all of the games they're bringing. So let's get right to the ones we picked.
So we're going to do these in little chunks of two, and I got the first two here. And the first one I want to talk about, I'm just going to start alphabetically with Arcs. And this is a game by Leader Games. I generally like Leader Games. They do really cool asymmetric games. This one does look a little bit different. This is kind of a fighty, area control-y game that's all done through trick-taking. It's also got dice in it. It's set in space. And it looks really interesting. It looks like it takes a little bit from Oath, because there's kind of a mini campaign that you can do where you play 3 games that affect each other, and it's kind of like a 3-act thing. Or you can do one-off games as well with the same system. And I'm just really interested in how it combines trick-taking with all of these other elements that are mixed in with that. And so that is Arcs. And then my second one here is Borderlands, and I'm reading this because I have not memorized this name, but Borderlands Mr. Torg's Arena of Badassery. And this does not look like a game I would usually like. This is dudes on a map, fighting, skirmishy game. And I'm not a huge video gamer, but I love Borderlands. Borderlands is so just my kind of thing. I really got into it with the storytelling one, which is actually a little different than the normal game. But now I've played Borderlands 2 and 3 and 4, or whatever they're at. And I love the sense of humor of it. So I am interested in this one, even though it's not the sort of thing I would usually play.
And we did not coordinate our list, so mine is not alphabetical, but
Right.
I'm just going to go into my first two. My first one is SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And it is important to say the full name because there is already a SETI game from the 70s. This is a new game, and it's by CGE. So we generally like games published by CGE, always interested to check them out. And I love the theme. I love space exploration. And this is exactly that. You are on Earth and you're sending probes out into space to do surveys and figure out what might be out there. It sounds like the planets are like ever changing, like shifting around.
Oh.
So when you send your probes and when you choose to land might be impacted by like where the different planets are. So that sounds really interesting.
I was really into Kutnahora because that's the first time we played that last year, and that was kind of like my game of the convention last year. So I'm interested in this one.
Yeah, and they're using like 200 research cards, which are all based on current and upcoming real space things. So there's going to be like the Perseverance probe and like the International Space Station, the Large Hadron Collider, lots of science stuff.
Way better than I researched.
It was science. I was interested. And then my next game is also space themed, and that's Shackleton's Base, Journey to the Moon. And so when I saw Shackleton's Base, I thought it was going to be Antarctica themed.
Right, yes.
Yes, because that is a famous Antarctic explorer. But no, apparently there's a crater on the moon called Shackleton's Crater. And so it's about going to that crater, and then you are trying to establish a presence there. But the interesting thing is it's Fabio Lopiano and Nestor Magoni who did Autobahn. So we've played their games before. It seems very interesting. This seems like it's a variable setup where each game there are 3 corporations that are going to be influencing your projects, maybe even your resources, the different things you're doing, and you are always choosing out of 7. So that mix is going to feel, I think, very different each game depending on which corporations are included.
That's really cool. There's a fun fact too, is that Shackleton, one of Shackleton's lesser known expeditions, was actually a dog sled expedition to the moon. He did not make it very far at all. Very failed, but yeah, it's not well known. So a couple of mine here I want to talk about, and I'm still going alphabetical. It's not going to happen the whole time, but I'm excited about it for now. But one of them is Doggerland, and Doggerland is, I know it's at the Hachette booth. I'm not sure exactly who the publisher is, but this is based on this chunk of land that used to exist between the UK and Europe. And then that got covered over by the North Sea at some point, quite a while back. But this is about before that. So you're hunting woolly mammoths. This is like just after the Ice Age, it kind of like the birth of humanity. And you're you're hunting woolly mammoths, and you're building huts, and you're doing all this cool stuff. And we had a little bit of a sneak peek at this at Aircon, but we didn't have a chance to play it. But I noticed just it looked super, super thematic, and it looked like there were tons of different stuff that you could do in it. Like there was just all sorts of stuff on the board. It looked like a really interesting game. So I'm really keen to try that one for real this time. And
Yeah, that's an interesting part too. I recently took Life in the UK test, and it talked about that land bridge that existed. And I was like, oh yeah, there must have been one. And well, now that's can tie into it.
yeah. So that is cool. I'd like to see a Bering Strait game as well. And then another one is Quoridor Pac-Man, and I haven't played Quoridor, so I don't know that much about it. I know from the description that it's a competitive maze building game, and so you got this big, you just got like a big square that's got kind of grids in it, and you're adding walls to it, and you're trying to move through a maze, and the other person's also trying to move through a maze, I think. But this adds Pac-Man to it, and the Pac-Man pieces look awesome. There's Pac-Man, there's the four ghosts, someone, or people can play as the ghost, people can play as Pac-Man, and there's Pac pellets out, and you're trying to eat those. And I just know I've read little mini reviews of this and seen some folks playing this, and people seem to really, really like it. And I love Pac-Man. I love it from my youth. So I'm excited about that one too.
So for my next one is Cities, which is published by DeVere, and one of the designers is Phil Walker Harding, and we're big fans of Phil Walker Harding. And this looks like it is like a 40-minute light to medium game. It's city building, but you are exploring different cities across the world, like Buenos Aires and London, all kinds of different places, to be inspired to build your neighborhood. And it has these little building pieces that you're putting out in different colors, and you're able to stack them up. So I don't think it's quite like a tile placement, more that you're kind of arranging these little building pieces, which I guess are tile adjacent. But I'm interested.
Yeah, I always like Phil Walker Harding games. This is one I've been kind of looking out for a while. I think this was announced last year, and so very keen to try this.
The next one is one we have kind of played. It is Moving Wild. So a couple years ago, the game Zuli came out. It was a big hit at UKGE. It's this fun drafting game where you're putting enclosures out and animals in those enclosures. And Oink has since picked it up and are doing a re-implementation of it. So I'm really curious to see how similar it is. It might be very similar. They may have done a few key little differences. So I definitely want to check out this re-implementation of Zuli called Moving Wild.
My next one's one that actually came out last year, and I know is actually up for a Golden Geek Award. So this is not a brand new game, but it is Witchcraft, and this is a solo-only game. And why I'm excited about it, because I've just more recently got more and more into solo games, and a solo only game sounds interesting to me. I love Final Girl, and this is very card driven, and you're witches, but you're trying to protect this town. You're trying to get rid of monsters who are trying to attack this town. You're trying to protect this town, but also the town's full of Puritans, which is not great for witches. And so you've got to protect these dumb Puritans without them destroying you. So you got to sneakily protect them. And that's an interesting theme to me. And the gameplay looks good. And I know I've only heard tremendous things about it. So I really want to check out this one, even though I'm just a little bit late to the party. And then my other one here is Battle of Versailles. And this is 100% for the theme. The theme is amazing. So this thing that really happened back in like 1973, where fashion designers from France and fashion designers from the UK, there's 5 and 5, and they had a fashion off, and they met in Versailles, and they all brought like their things. They did a big fashion show, like a competitive fashion show. It's like real life Zoolander that actually happened. This competitive fashion show. And this game is about that. It looks like you got a big runway, you're playing cards to it, but it's also asymmetrical. So if you're the French, you're like the classical style, and you get more turns because your fashion show can take longer. Whereas if you're the Americans, you're like the brash new like thing coming into fashion and shaking it up. And so you got to do things like faster and bigger. And it's just, the theme is so terrific. So I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, I remember you heard about this like a couple months back, and immediately you're like, this sounds amazing.
I was learning everything about this actual thing that happened in history because it's crazy.
My next one is Loot. So it's Loot with an extra O. And so that, first of all, caught our eyes because it's fun to say. But it seems like it's an interesting mix of area control and tile placement. And so you are collecting resources, and you are Vikings, and you're trying to build your own fjord. So it sounds like there's a shared area on the board that you're using to be able to take over buildings and get some different areas under your control, which will then give you access to the different loot that you are putting on your own board building out your fjord. So it seems like an interesting combination. My next one is Windmill Valley, which is published by Board and Dice and designed by Danny Garcia, who also designed Barcelona. And so we got a sneak peek at Essen last year, and it looks lovely. It's all about tulip farming. And so I'm already intrigued, and it looks like there's this neat action selection mechanism with this wheel that you're building out, and I think making stronger as you go. So definitely one we want to check out.
And then I've got a couple more here. So Harmonies is one of those. And Harmonies is this game I've been hearing really good things about. And this is kind of tile placement. You've got more like little circles, like mandala stone style. And you're piling those, it looks like, on top of each other. And what you're trying to do is make nice landscapes for animals to live in. So you got animal cards, they want these certain landscapes. But as like nice and like airy as that sounds, apparently it's quite a brain-burning puzzle. So it's really cute. It's got this really lovely theme, but also a little bit brain-burning. So I'm very keen on that. And then also Luthier or Luthier, I'm not sure how to say this. They make very, very, very fancy pianos. And this is a game about kind of the boom of classical music, like the golden age of classical music, or whatever you would call it, when it was Mozart and Beethoven and Bach, and you are making these instruments. You're also putting on concerts, and apparently there's different paths. It's by the publishers of Distilled, and I know people loved that game last year. And so this one's interesting because there's not enough music-themed game. I know Lacrimosa I heard nothing but good things about, and so keen to try that one.
My next one is Yonder, and this is published by Sinister Fish with the same designer who did Moon, Streets, and Villagers, and we really like all three of those. We got a chance to play Moon with the designer last year at UKGE, and he was really lovely.
And he mentioned this game to us as well. He didn't mention it by name, but he was like, "Oh, wait till you see my next game. It's very different than the trilogy that I just did."
Yeah, and so this is set in a fantastical world, and the art looks very whimsical because the designer also does the art as well, and I really like his style. And it is a worker placement engine building game, and I don't know too much about it, but just because of the history of those three other games, I'm interested. The last one on my list is Terminus, and this is published by Inside Up Games. And in Terminus, you are competing subway companies. So you are, I think, building subway routes and competing with each other to build subway routes. But we just really like the underground. And so anything that has that, I am immediately interested, and I definitely want to check it out.
And then one more that I just want to sneak in there because it's by a local designer here is Deep Regrets. And I actually did get to play an earlier playtest, like prototype version of this game, and it kind of mixes Cthulhu and fishing together. Like And that, what an interesting mix that is. And so this is cool, and I'm interested to see what it looks like now with the even newer version. And so that one, a shout out to an indie designer who's based right here in Edinburgh, and so you always want to support those two.
So those were just a few initial games that caught our eye, but I'm sure there's a ton that we're missing out on. So if there's one in particular you're looking forward to, please do let us know in the comments.
And we'll be there the whole time. And I do want to mention that on Saturday from 1:30 to 4:30, I will be playtesting Last Week of Summer in the playtest zone. But if you can't make it for that and you just see me around and you want to do a playtest, please do ask, because I will be more than happy to do that. And yeah, we're just really excited to be there. It's always a super fun weekend.
Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments what new game you're most looking forward to. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.